What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So I want to take a look and listen to Senator Barrasso. He's going to be talking about raising the debt ceiling. And this is just a small clip, but I want to talk about this because I think this is very important when it comes to our future. I mean, we're looking at a situation where we can go into default if we do not pay our bills. So we're going to take a listen to what Senator Barrasso has to say when it comes to raising the debt limit. But first off, on this channel, we talk about money, news, and more. If that sounds like something interesting to you, please subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell notification. That way you'll get notified anytime we put out a video. And like always, if you see my name and a picture of me in the comment section, make sure you also see a check mark next to my name. That check mark signifies that it's me. If you do not see that check mark, it's not me. It's someone trying to impersonate me. Okay, so we're going to take a look and a listen. But before we do, I want to talk a little bit about raising the debt ceiling because this is one of those situations where this is money that's already been spent, okay? And you're going to hear politicians try to turn this around and say, well, we're not going to play a role in raising the debt ceiling because they want to spend $4 trillion or they want to spend more money. It has nothing to do with the future spending. We're talking about past spending. And every time I hear a politician who's against raising the debt ceiling, that is what they go to. They go to, well, they're going to be spending all this money and we're not going to be a part of it. Well, you were a part of the money that's been spent, and that's what we're talking about. Now, the future spending, that's a whole different situation, and that's something that will be addressed next year. But this year, we need to address the money that's already been spent. Okay, so we're talking about during the Trump administration, the money that was spent for the different COVID relief packages. We're talking about this year during the Biden administration, the money that was spent for the COVID package relief, the $1.9 trillion COVID relief. We're talking about that money, okay? So we're talking about things that have been spent from last year into this year, raising the debt ceiling to pay for those. We're not talking about this future stuff. We're not talking about the Build Back Better plan. We're not talking about the infrastructure bill, the first infrastructure bill. So let's go ahead and take a look and listen and hear what he has to say about this. Here we go.
You talk about Republicans, they're against the Build Back Better thing. They're also against raising the debt limit. Mitch McConnell said it would just enable Democratic spending. But the Wall Street Journal says, and I'm quoting here, sir, a vote to raise the debt limit doesn't authorize new spending, but it's essentially, it allows the Treasury to raise money to pay for expenses the government has already authorized. So this is to pay for things already authorized. And it's important to point out, in your state alone, this is paying for things like almost 30,000 people getting SNAP benefits. Of course, that's food benefits. 33,000 students eligible for free or reduced school lunches. So a lot of benefits from this to your state, Senator. Why are you against it?
Well, in my state, I was a member of the state Senate. Our Constitution demands that we balance our budget every year, that we live within our means, just like families all across America need to do. And I think the federal government ought to do the same thing.
Now, and that's a very, very good point. Senator Barrasso makes a very good point. State governments, they have to balance their budget every year. So they can't deficit spend. But when it comes to the federal government, they deficit spend. Now, this is, let's not even talk about this year. Let's go back to the last 4 years, okay? This is a senator. He's a leader in the Republican Party. Now, if we look back 4 years, at one point, Republicans had control of the White House, they had control of the House, and they had control of the Senate. Okay, well, I think it was for about 2 years. But we still added to the debt. And so when you have politicians come out and say, yes, we need to balance our budget. Yes, we need to balance our budget. Why aren't you doing it? Then you are failing at your job is what you're saying. And you're okay with failing at your job until you have someone else in power. You have the Democrats in power. And now there's a sense of urgency. There should have been a sense of urgency 4 years ago when you controlled everything. But now you're looking at a situation where you don't have control. And now you're just lashing out at the other party. Now, both parties do this. Democrats will do the same thing when Republicans are in power. But it's just interesting to hear these politicians come out and talk about this like, we can't add to the debt, but when they're in office, they add to the debt. So let's go ahead and hear what he has to say. Here we go.
This is all about Democrat spending. This is 100% on them.
So it's 100% on the Democrats. We're looking at a situation where, like I said, this is past debt. These are things that we've already paid for. This is not the future. So how can it be 100% on the Democrats if you had Democrats playing a role and you had Republicans playing a role passing these bills?
Get rid of all of the gimmicks of accounting. This bill that the Democrats are proposing is $4 trillion in additional spending. There's not a single Republican who's going to vote for the bill or to raise the debt ceiling. This is on the Democrats.
Okay, so you heard him saying this is on the Democrats. So you probably not going to see any support from Republicans when it comes to raising the debt ceiling. This has to happen by December 3rd. If it doesn't happen by December 3rd, we're looking at a situation where we could be in default in a couple of weeks. I think Secretary Yellen said it would probably take mid-December where we'll be looking at a situation where we go into default, and that would be a bad thing for our economy. I mean, it would tank our economy. The stock market would really be affected by this. Our credit rating among the world nations would drop. So we're looking at a real serious situation here. And I don't think that Senator Barrasso is taking this as serious as he should be. And I think that they all bear the burden. They all need to come together when it comes to raising the debt ceiling. It hasn't been an issue in the past, but for whatever reason, it's a big issue right now. And then we also need to talk about the shutting down of the government. We need to talk about funding the government. That's another thing. December 3rd, we're looking at that. There's a deadline for that. And they're two separate things. And so we're going to have to see how they work this all out. But when it comes down to it, when politicians start coming out and telling you, well, you know, we don't want a deficit spend and all this, but they deficit spend when they're in power, you really have to look at them and say, look, you're not being honest with the American people. You're saying one thing out of one side of your mouth, and then the other side of your mouth, you're saying a completely different thing. Because if you're in power, you don't mind spending money. We're looking at the NDAA. We're looking at the National Defense funding. That's something else that will be happening in December. And guess what? That's going to be $700-800 billion. Okay. Now I agree. We need to protect ourselves and we need to fund our national defense. But when you're talking about spending money, that's going to be a lot of money that's spent, and we spend that money every year without any issue. So why can't we start looking at some of these other programs that need to be addressed and start focusing on that? Focus on Social Security, focus on Medicare, focus on some of the needs that the American people have. We can't just focus on the national defense. We have to focus on other things as well. And we can't just think, okay, we're spending all this money for the national defense, so let's go to war and go to these different conflicts. Because that's what we end up getting into, and we're paying even more money. Afghanistan is a big example of that. 20 years we spent there. We spent a lot of money in Afghanistan, and we got nothing in return. So we really need to start looking at these things. I want to know what you guys think about this whole debt ceiling, raising the debt ceiling. Do you think it should be all on the Democrats, or do you think both Democrats and Republicans should come together so we can pay for our past debt? Let me know what you guys think down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.